Hi, I'm Gary White for Channel 6, Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with Luke Freese at the Nelson County Extension Office. It's November.
It was a quick turnaround from the last one because we kind of were at the end of October, and now we're kind of towards the beginning of November.
Well, you had some big stuff going on in October.
Yes, so I did get married in October, which was great, but we're getting back in the swing of things.
Exactly. And we're continuing with our recipes. We're working our way through the 2019 Food and Nutrition Calendar. And it's November, which means we're coming to the end of our 2019 Food and Nutrition Calendar. But you still have some of these calendars available, right?
We do, yeah. We always, we've got boxes of them. So we've said in previous shows, if you just want to take one for the recipes, there's tear-out recipe cards there on the back. So they're still good, even though, and there's substitution charts, and so it's still a good thing. There's different ways to be active. There's all kinds of stuff in there, other than just the calendar. So come by and get one.
But we've worked our way through so far 11 recipes. We're up to the number 11, and this month it's going to be the autumn apple pork.
Yes.
Now it's autumn apple pork because we're in autumn, I guess.
Right.
Apples are popular in the fall.
Apples, obviously popular. There's cranberries. That's a big, Thanksgiving thing. And then, I don't know, there's something just kind of hearty about pork.
That's right.
And sage and some of those spices. So it's a good recipe. It does take a little longer. So I was telling you earlier, it takes about 4 hours, depending on how big your pork loin is. So
sit back.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But yeah, so we're going to show you the finished product like we always do.
Right.
But it might look a little different because we've had to cook it ahead of time, cool it, and then reheat it. So,
right. Absolutely.
We'll give it our best shot.
Absolutely.
But we'll show you the steps to get started. And really, it's 4 hours to cook, but the prep doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
And it's convenient because you're putting it in a crock pot or a slow cooker.
Okay.
Unless you want to use the oven, but if you want to leave it in the slow cooker, leave it alone and go do what you need to do and come back to it, you can.
Absolutely. So, and since November is known for turkey, this is a nice alternative. If you don't really want to maybe do turkey for Thanksgiving, maybe you could try this pork.
Yeah, if you're a bigger fan of pork and you want to do that. And,
absolutely.
And you can find pork loins that are smaller or bigger, but they're not frozen. So it's not. We talk about turkeys and making turkey during Thanksgiving. You got to go buy the turkey. You got to usually they're frozen, so you got that whole process of thawing it out and then deciding how you want to cook it. So this is kind of an easy alternative if you're in a crunch. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started.
Sounds good.
I don't have my recipe
I'll
with
read
me.
it to
It's
you.
back here. We ran out of space. So if you can just kind of get us started.
So it's our autumn apple pork, and we're going to have 2 pounds of pork loin. And it says to season the pork on both sides with garlic powder, salt, and sage. Wrap pork tightly in foil and place in the slow cooker.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
So when you go to the store, you may or may not find a pork loin that's exactly 2 pounds. So you can kind of adjust this recipe as needed as far as how big your pork loin is. It's tough because we want to get this pork loin to 145 degrees internal temperature. There are a lot of things that can go wrong with pork, whether it's salmonella if you don't cook it long enough. Pigs tend to carry parasites. If you've never heard of trichinosis or the parasite trichinella, that is one that is not typically found, but it can be found, and if you don't cook it up to that 145 degree temp, you're putting yourself and your family at risk. We don't want you to do that. But anyway, so I found one it's 1.1 pounds. So this is actually half of what the recipe says that we need.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of lower our seasonings a little bit, basically cut them in half, and then it calls for 4 hours of cook time. That's for a 2 pound loin. So we're going to check this at 2 hours on high in our slow cooker. So I know we're jumping ahead, but so I'm going to go ahead. It says to season.
Okay. Yes.
So we
have the 2 pound pork loin, which we're doing 1 pound. It says 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. So we're going to do a half a teaspoon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can customize them.
Yep.
So 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. Is that
So
what that is?
I've got them all mixed together.
And then it says a quarter teaspoon of salt. So we're going to half that.
Yep.
A 3/4 teaspoon of dried sage.
Yes.
And Then we have...
And that's it for
That's
the
all
pork
for
loin.
the dry.
So that's all
the
we
dry
got.
rub.
Salt, sage,
So-
and garlic powder.
Right, garlic powder, salt, and dried sage is what we're putting on our pork right now.
Yes. So I'm just going to kind of sprinkle
This be
that.
kind of like our dry rub.
Right.
What you call that?
And you can, I'm not going to get my hands dirty today just because to save time I won't have to wash again. So I'm going to use some tongs and kind of flip that over and just make sure that I have that all over. But whenever you do this at home, if you would like to, you can rub it in with your fingers and that'll get some of that flavor further into the tissue of the meat. You can also go ahead and season this and leave it in your refrigerator overnight covered, and that'll soak in more of the flavor.
Get more deep in there.
I did notice this one, loins typically you have to season pretty heavily. In this recipe, it doesn't ask you to do that. I think it's to cut down on the sodium and the salt. But you may decide to add something to it, whether it's rosemary, there are different things, mustard, that you can add to a pork loin that makes it taste really good. But for this recipe, it's keeping it simple: garlic powder, sage, salt.
Okay.
Now, before you go forward, Gary,
Yes.
I'm going to add a step.
Okay.
Okay.
Fantastic.
And this is called searing. So anytime you have a roast and you have a dry rub or something like this, you can put it in a pan, sear it, which means you're caramelizing the top and the bottom and the sides of your roast.
Okay.
Whatever it might be, you could do the same thing with beef. And it also kind of starts the cooking process, then you're going to stop it. And that'll keep it from, especially in a slow cooker, from turning into like a pulled pork. So it doesn't mention this in the recipe, but it will help kind of lock in some of our flavor from our seasonings, and it'll, like I said, kind of prevent it from falling apart. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're smoking already. I put a little bit of olive oil in the pan,
Okay.
and that's just to keep it from sticking. I turned it down a little bit because we were smoking while we were talking. But we're just going to sear that on both sides.
Okay.
And
So-
again, you don't have to do this.
Right.
You can give it a shot, but it gives you a little leeway when you're cooking in a slow cooker so it's not falling apart on you.
It's Luke's tip of the day.
Right, yeah.
That's right.
We got to have some of those. more often.
Absolutely. Luke's tip of the day. So when you're searing it, is there a point that you know it's ready? I mean, like
Yeah,
change colors. Is that the,
Yeah,
is
it's
that
kind of
what it
got a
is? Okay.
caramelized, and I don't know if you can see it on TV, but it's got a caramelized top to it. It's just a little brown.
Right.
And it doesn't take long, but you're going to put it on high heat. You want to make sure whatever oil you're putting in there to make sure it doesn't stick, that it doesn't burn and burst into flames. You know, you want to make sure your oil that you're
Yeah, that would
using
be
has
good.
a high
Burn.
burn point. But we're just
Doing the
going to
whole-
sear it on all sides,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see it looks pretty nice there.
Yep, absolutely. Good
So
job.
then we are going to put this on our foil, right?
Okay. Okay.
And now we
Yes.
are good. So
Seasoned
we
pork
added
on
an
this
extra
side.
step there. But
Wrap pork tightly in foil and place in the slow cooker. Yep.
all right, I'm gonna let you do this part.
I'm going to wrap.
You're gonna wrap. So if you watch the show on fajitas and burrito making, we don't want to do the same thing. If you watch Gary wrap up a burrito, it was something else. But
It was wrong.
so we're just gonna
How's that?
make sure that's nice and tight and packed. You don't want any air to leak out. So, but that's good, perfect. So we're gonna set this just in the bottom of our slow cooker.
Okay.
Slow cooker's on high right now, and we're just gonna kind of leave that be for now. So great
Perfect.
job.
So the slow cooker is on already.
Slow cooker is on already. It's on high.
You need the...
Just be careful that you're not burning yourself. But we're gonna add something else to it, so we're not
Okay,
gonna
we're
put
not
the lid
going
on
to
it
put it on
yet.
there. Okay, fantastic. Okay. So, next step. Are we ready to move on?
We're ready to move on.
Okay. Place apple slices, cranberries, and butter on a large piece of foil. Drizzle with honey, wrap up foil to create a packet, and place in the slow cooker.
All right, perfect. So it
And
says,
for this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. So we need 3 apples, cored and sliced,
right?
1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, and 1 tablespoon of honey.
Perfect.
Okay. So what do
So
we do?
and we also needed a half cup, I think, of cranberries, right? So
Yes.
Dried cranberries?
Dried cranberries.
Okay. So we don't have to do anything with the cranberries. You can find those in the grocery store, just in a little package, you know. And so you can buy those, just measure out a half a cup. I've got them in the bottom of my bowl here already,
Yep.
and I've already sliced up some apples. But per usual, we'll do a little bit of knife skills.
Okay.
And we're just going to cut this apple in half. And I did one and a half big apples because I think it's hard to make a packet with 3 large apples. This is a pretty large apple.
Right.
I did Honeycrisp. You can find a different variety of apple. Some of them are sweeter, some of them
What's
are
your
more
favorite?
tart.
Honeycrisp?
I like John Gold.
Okay.
Have you ever tried? It's a
Not that I know.
hybrid.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Is it sweet or?
yeah, it's like sweet, kind of tart, but those are the ones I like to snack on. It has
It's
a
yellow,
has a
I
nice
assume.
nice balance. Yeah, it's like a yellow. It almost looks like this Honeycrisp right here.
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
But Red Delicious kind of sometimes they get a little grainy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm not a Red Delicious fan. But anyway, lesson of the day for apples.
What
So
was it
again,
called? John's Gold?
John Gold.
John Gold.
Yeah. So it's Johnny Smith. No, it's a Granny Smith.
Granny Smith.
Oh man, I'm gonna get in trouble. I better just stop.
It's a hybrid of something.
It's a hybrid
Okay.
of some kind. We can ask Robbie later. He's our hort guy. So we're going to cut these, make sure they're on flat surfaces once again. It says to core the apples. I usually just kind of cut them in quarters and then slice right down kind of the middle, and that'll get that core out.
Okay.
And then we're just going to make sure our fingers out of the way, keep the tip of our knife on the cutting board like we always do, and we're just going to rock back and forth and move the apple towards the knife. And we just ran out of lights, Miss Lorraine. We always have our live audience that try to slip us up. So we've got our nice apple chunks there, which we already have some there. So since we're low on space for these, we're just going to use that apple and a half since we got big apples. So we're just going to dump those on the foil.
Okay.
It says to add our tablespoon of butter. So that
And we
is
don't melt it, we just-
unsalted
right, yep.
butter.
Oh, right,
And it's going to
yes.
melt over the top and kind of caramelize as
Okay.
it's in the slow cooker.
Gotcha.
I substituted, since I like a little bit of a maple flavor, and maple is really good on pork, I
Okay.
substituted maple syrup for honey.
Okay.
So you don't
Well,
have to
just-
substitute, but I'm
You're
throwing a
just
lot
doing
of
all kinds
wrenches.
things to this little recipe.
Throwing a lot of wrenches in these recipes.
So if you want Luke's version of this recipe, you can contact the extension office too.
I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. But you know, sometimes when you're looking in the pantry and you have a recipe like this, you're like, all right, well, I have a pork loin, but I don't have honey, don't have this, don't have that.
Right.
The point is, you can still make a similar meal, and with the stuff you already have. You don't have to make a
If you like
special
pancakes, you'll have that. So now we're making a packet instead.
making a
Like we
packet.
rolled that one tightly, right?
Right.
This one
Right.
you're gonna.
We're gonna make
more
kind of a
loose?
packet, and if you were in like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, you've cooked over a fire. That's kind of the packet that we're gonna make with foil. So we're just gonna kind of bring it together at the top and then roll it over to seal it, and then we're gonna get the ends and do the same thing. Just kind of roll those towards our apples.
Okay.
So you should have a nice sealed packet. And if you have any maple syrup or honey leaking out, you know you're in bad shape. If you don't, then you're in good shape.
Absolutely.
So I think we're good.
Okay.
And we're just going to put that packet right on top of our pork loin that's in the slow cooker. And then, final step,
With the lid.
we're going to put the lid on the slow cooker, seal it up, and then we'd set our timer, in this case, for about 2 hours. And then you want to go ahead and check that with a meat thermometer. And we've got these at the office if you need a meat thermometer. It's a good thing to have, especially before the holidays if you're roasting turkeys or making pork loins. Seems like we don't want to overcook it, but we also don't want to make our guests sick.
Right.
So stop by and get one of these. We'll be glad to give one. And then
And on here, it will tell you
exactly
the recipes, right? And you can even look at it. And so for pork on here, it's 145 degrees Fahrenheit or 63 Celsius
Correct.
for beef lamb or pork.
And so we've got these aprons as well, so we'd be glad to give you one of those so you've got all your tips. If you have grandkids or kids that want to help you cook, these don't have the fancy charts on them.
Okay.
They're pretty cool. It's got Wally Cat, and then they've got a little cape on the back.
Okay.
So you're kind of like a
I didn't get
superhero. We thought about giving Gary one of those, but I figured maybe he'd get a little mad at me, so I didn't go there.
Okay, so we cook for, we're saying 2 hours for this, but we 4 hours. Then after that, you would unwrap both packets, slice the pork, and top with the apples.
Correct. So the apples are going to kind of cook down a little bit. You may have a little bit of juices in the bottom of your crock pot. That's okay. But you're gonna we'll give a version of the final product. I was going to mention too, if you don't have a slow cooker at home, this recipe works just as well in your regular oven. I would suggest, and it doesn't say this in the recipe, so we're going off the recipe again, but I would suggest putting it in at about 325 or 350 and put it in for about 35 to 45 minutes per pound of loin that you have. And then again, check it with the thermometer on the internal temperature.
Okay.
And you want to make sure you check that either right out of the oven or while it's in the oven, because that temperature really drops fast and it's easy to overcook, and then it's dry or it becomes pulled pork.
So it's a lot faster then in the oven than it would be in the slow cooker.
It is, but again, the convenience of the slow cooker, you're cooking both things at the same time.
Yeah.
You can put it in here, leave it, and you're done, whereas the oven, you may have to check it here and there.
Okay.
But if you're in a time crunch, the oven's much quicker. And I think the slow cooker may give it a little more flavor. But it asks you, at the end of the recipe, there's an optional, you can roast it for at 425 degrees.
Yeah.
And that'll kind of brown the top a little bit and make it have that nice color that it has
for
there
5
on
to
the
7
calendar.
minutes. Yeah. To have that nice pretty color up here. So how does yours look?
So I'm going to get it out and put it on the cutting board. Hopefully you can get a little close in
Yeah, and I'll get a shot of it.
We'll top it, we'll put it on the plates, we'll make a nice little presentation, and then we'll hopefully show the audience. We'll taste it, and we'll be all set.
Sounds good. Okay, Luke, so we have it out of the container there, right?
We do. Again, we are cooking for a live audience, so if you hear a little bit of background noise, no worries. There are taste testers. But yeah, I've got it out of the oven. Again, this one we cooked ahead of time because it does take a little bit of time. And then I reheated it. When I reheated it, I didn't want to put it in the microwave because, again, sometimes that overcooks it or it takes some of the color off of it. So I went ahead and stuck this in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes on like 200 degrees just to try to not dry it out. But you can see where I'm cutting it today, it's got a nice kind of a pink color, but we've reached temperature, so we know that that's not undercooked. So what I'm going to do for Gary and I, so I'm just going to take a couple slices of this. I've put a little bit of the juice that was in the bottom of the container on our plate, just because, like we said earlier, this recipe, you really have to flavor the pork loin, otherwise you don't get some of that flavor that you want. So,
but it looks good.
It does look good. So we'll put a couple pieces there. We've got the apples and cranberries, you can see, hopefully there, and they look really nice. And I'll use this fork. And what I'm going to do, you can put this on top of your loin in a baking dish or something, but I'm just going to kind of put it on top of our little bite there because I think that looks kind of nice. And this is going to add a little bit of salty flavor. It's going to add a little bit of fat. Remember, we put butter in this. And it's going to add a little bit of a sweet flavor with the maple syrup. So there we are.
Yeah, it looks good. We're ready to taste it?
Yes, we're ready to taste.
Yeah. So this one was also about a 1 pound, did you say?
Yes, they were all about the same size, all about 1.1 pound. Thank you.
There you go. Try these.
And we'll just give it a shot.
It looks nice and tender.
It does. It turned out pretty
Good job.
nice. So again, just make sure you're checking because I think the first time we tried this, we did it for 4 hours on a 2-pound loin, and it got up to like 180 degrees internal temperature, and by the time you're there, you're pulled pork. So
very good.
So the apples and cranberries give it a little bit of texture.
Absolutely. Tasty.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it's a good fall recipe. It tastes like fall, I think. You think it tastes like fall?
I do. I can taste the...
Although it's winter outside, seems like, today. Got snow on the ground.
It also has the sweetness with the maple syrup and stuff in there, too. Good
I'm going to
job.
skip the second taste, because I might get it all over and we don't have napkins. But yeah, if you have any questions about any of the recipes we've done,
Yeah.
we'd be glad to answer those here at the Extension office. You can give us a call, 502-348-9204.
Right.
You can also find lots of different recipes and resources on our Facebook page, and I do try to post all the videos that we do here with Central Kentucky Television from YouTube on our Facebook page as well, so you can just click on the link.
Okay, and this is the autumn apple pork. It's the November recipe in our food and nutrition calendar. And you can get the calendars, you can get all of them here at the Extension office. And if you want Luke's adjustments to this recipe, you can get them as well and just give him a call.
Yeah, you can give me a call, you can send me an email, stop by, get a card. So we'd be glad to chat with you.
Absolutely. Again, it's been Gary White for Channel 6 Central Kentucky Television here with Luke Reese at the Nelson County Extension office. Thank you.
Thank you.